This is a tutorial on sculpting techniques to create a 3D life-size staff, inspired by Rey from Star Wars. These are the materials you will need, as well as some sheets of paper. Any type works. To create a lightweight pole to build the staff off of, start rolling the side of your piece of paper in. Roll it fairly tightly so that it's got some strength to it. Tape it in place so it doesn't unroll whilst you roll the next ones. Take this roll and line it up with your next piece of paper and start rolling. This helps you maintain the same width, and it means that they are already aligned to be taped in place and you're able to extend the length. Keep repeating this process until it's almost your height. Now tape all the way down the long paper pole with masking tape to strengthen it and make sure everything is sealed and ready to be sculpted onto. It's easier to break it into sections because then you can smoothen out the creases in the tape as you go. Once you've completed this and wrapped the entire surface of the pole, lay down some cling film or baking paper so that the foam clay doesn't stick to the surface you're working on. Then take a small amount of foam clay and start to roll it out. When rolling this piece out, you don't want it to be flat, you want it to be able to have a triangle slant to it, so that when it's wrapped around the staff base, it will look like a cone shape and give it a ledge. You can make sure the edge of this thicker side of the slant is in a straight line by folding the cling film over it and flattening it out with your hand. Trim off the edges that you can reuse and then roll them out and replicate a smaller, similar shape to what you've just created. Take some more clay and start to roll it out into a much larger wedge. Roll out a completely flat piece of foam clay and start to trim off equal sized strips for the detailing. Then take one of these and trim them into smaller pieces. Once you have enough shapes, you can start adding them to the base staff structure. Fix the clay to the staff evenly and start to layer on the other pieces. You can pinch the two edges of the square together and blend them so that you can't see where the joint is. Start to fold the excess clay towards the top of the staff, covering the end. Once you've added all three of the pieces, You can start to pat them down with the edge of a flat knife. Then you can reinforce where the edges are and make them look sharper to create a 3D effect using the knife. Just keep doing this until you're happy with the shape. Start trimming off thinner pieces from the foam you cut off earlier, and then line them up parallel to each other around the tip. With the smaller pieces, add them in between the gaps to create an almost track-like effect. You can experiment with the placing of this as much as you want. Using a cocktail stick or a pointed clay tool, you can highlight the shapes you've just stuck on and redraw some of the lines and start adding mark makings onto it to start to make it look more realistic. You can start adding more thinner lines towards the tip to create more details. Start cutting more random shapes for the detailing. You can experiment with the size and shape. You can use a reference photo to make it look more accurate. However, it can be more fun having creative freedom and having a variety of shapes to experiment with. This is a good way to personalise your work. Once you are ready, take a fairly big piece of thinly rolled out clay and wrap it around the staff. This will give you a big base cover to start to add the detailing onto. Start layering the shapes and drawing semicircles and lines where you think it will be most effective. I find that it often looks more cohesive when you connect random shapes together using a singular piece of foam clay. You can layer the thin pieces over the chunky designs you already added. Try adding small embellishments like miniature squares or circles. This attention to detail will overall make your staff look more effective. Towards the middle part of the staff, to create a hand gripping section, have a fairly empty section of clay and start to add the gripping in by mark making lines with a knife. I find it easier to do this by placing the staff on a scrap rolled up piece of paper and turning it whilst holding the knife in the same place, and then slightly moving its placement. This means the line is less likely to be wonky. Keep repeating this process until it covers a large part of it. To contrast these lines, go in the opposite direction upwards again, just below the tip of the staff. This contrast of lines will be more drastically defined when you paint the metal finish on them, and the light will catch these different angles. Roll out some more foam clay and start cutting out rectangular shapes. However, give them a more coffin edge by trimming off the corners. By trimming off the corners, it's quite simple but a very effective geometric shape when layered. To layer these shapes, create two versions of the shape. but one being slightly smaller than the other. Lay the smaller one on top. Continue cutting out the shapes to add. Attach the coffin shapes and secure them in place by adding a band of foam clay from one side wrapped around to the other. It's okay to leave some of the tape from the pole exposed, as we'll paint over this later. If the piece isn't long enough, you can always stretch it. This is one of the bonus reasons for using foam clay, as it's extremely adaptable to work with. Keep on adding shapes until you are happy with it, and start to get a more bottom heavy staff, so that it's more sturdy when it's being held upright. To leave it to dry, stand it up on a piece of cling film so that one edge isn't flattened as it dries if it's laying down. Keep it vertical by taping it against a wall. I would advise that you don't tape it to a painted wall or one with wallpaper, as you might rip it off when removing it. Find a suitable wall to do this. It takes about 24 hours to fully dry, but this is mine once it had dried, and it's now strong and ready to be painted. Thank you for watching.